Hello, I welcome you to the fourth video on Michael, a poem by William Wordsworth. We have discussed Michael in 3 videos before, and the links to all these videos you can find in the description box below. In the third video, we saw that Michael and his wife were in conversation. There is a huge problem, a huge challenge that life has presented Michael with, and the first solution that he comes up with is that he will sell half of his lands to get the money to pay a penalty. But then he feels he would not die a happy man were he to lose these lands on which he had worked with all his heart and soul for 70 years of his life. So he comes up with the second solution. He feels that his son is young now. Why not send him to the big city, to London, and from there the son can make it big and therefore can bring the money back home, and we can pay the penalty and not lose our land. So they're still mid-conversation, and let us see now what Michael and his wife discuss about this challenge and how they finally decide to overcome it. Wordsworth says, as Michael reflects, that why is it that my nephew was so irresponsible? So Michael feels that maybe he's being evil, or he feels that maybe not, but whatever it is, the problem is mine to deal with now. An evil man that was, and made an evil choice if he were false to us. And if he were not false, there are 10,000 to whom loss like this had been no sorrow. So I forgive him, but it were better to be dumb than to talk thus. So he feels that if the nephew is lying to them and he has been not a very scrupulous man, then perhaps he's being evil, or maybe he's not being evil and yet a loss has come to him. But then he feels that there are many like him who face such losses, but that does not bring them to this point. Why is it that I am being called upon to pay this penalty? But then he feels that fine, yet I was very dumb to suggest that we should sell our lands. That certainly is no solution. He says, when I began, my purpose was to speak of remedies and of a cheerful hope. So when I began to discuss with you, dear wife, as to how should we resolve this problem that has come upon us, my only aim was to find a solution, and so that we can come to hope, and therefore with hope comes some cheer. And this is what I was only trying to do. But then I feel that perhaps I should not have spoken of selling the lands. When I began, my purpose was to speak of remedies and of a cheerful hope. Our Luke shall leave us, Isabel. The land shall not go from us, and it shall be free. He shall possess it, free as is the wind that passes over it. We have, thou knowest, another kinsman, and he'll be our friend in distress, in this distress. So he says that I have now made up my mind. The only solution that we are gonna follow is that Luke will leave for London, and therefore we'll earn the money, we'll pay the penalty, and the land will be ours, and therefore I will give the land to him. I'll bequeath my land to him. Like I got this land from my ancestors, the land would be Luke's. So now Michael is very sure that this is a solution that he wants to go ahead with. And very beautifully, very poetically, the poet gets Michael to speak the lines that the land will be as free as the wind that flows over it. So right now there is a cloud above the land, and we might have to sell it to tide over this problem. But then I have seen a solution now, and I feel that Luke will make sure that the land is free and that Luke inherits this land from me. We have, thou knowest, another kinsman, and he'll be our friend in this distress. So Michael now remembers that they have a relative in London, and that this relative can help Luke settle down in this big city, or find a job, or find some occupation. So Michael now feels that this relative can help them in this problem and can help his son Luke to find some occupation in London. He is a prosperous man, thriving in trade, and Luke to him shall go. And with his kinsman's help and his own thrift, he quickly will repair this loss, and then he may return to us. If here he stay, what can be done? Where everyone is poor, what can be gained? Michael feels that if Luke stays here, no matter he works as hard as us or even harder, everyone is poor here. We really cannot hope that we can earn enough by this particular life that we have to be able to pay off the penalty and save our lands. So my relative, he's a prosperous man, he's doing very well in his life, he has a good business, he's thriving in that business, and Luke will go to him, and with the help of this relative, and also very importantly, Michael doesn't forget to mention, or Wordsworth makes Michael say this, that Luke will also live very responsibly. He will not live in a way that he just spends all his money or lives very lavishly. So Luke would also be very responsible with all that he earns, because Luke has now an aim in mind that he has to bring this money back and he has to save the lands from going into a stranger's hands. So with his own thrift, Luke will quickly repair the loss and then he will return to us. If he stays here, there is absolutely no hope, so we have to send Luke to London. At this, the old man paused, and Isabel sat silent, for her mind was busy looking back into past times. "There's Richard Bateman," thought she to herself. He was a parish boy at the church door. They made a gathering for him, shillings, pence, and halfpennies, wherewith the neighbours bought a basket with which they filled with peddlers' wares. Isabel now starts to think of this another person who was from this locality that they lived in, and he was a parish boy. He worked at the local church, and the neighbors had all put together very small sums of money, almost in coins, and they had made sure that they helped him to go to London. And he took some kind of stuff from all the neighborhood, and they filled his basket with peddlers' wares that can be peddled, things that can be sold, small things like a rediwala comes by or a small cart comes by that is selling some wares. These were the kind of things that the neighbors gave him so that he could start off on his own. He went to London and he made it big there. So Isabel imagined that like he had done so, perhaps my son would be as successful as well. And her thoughts ahead are, and with this basket on his arm, the lad went up to London, found a master there, who out of many chose the trusty boy to go and overlook his merchandise beyond the seas, where he grew wondrous rich, and left estates and moneys to the poor, and at his birthplace built a chapel floored with marble, which he sent from foreign lands. So Isabel remembered that all this young boy, this lad had was a basket which the neighborhood had given him, the things they had put in there, and with this basket he went to London. He found this master there. He worked very well for the master. The master was so happy and he trusted the boy so much that from among all those who worked for him, the master chose only this particular boy to overlook some of his business affairs in foreign lands. And Richard went there, he made it big there as well, and when he died he left a lot of property and money to a lot of poor people, and for his village back home he built a chapel there, and he floored that chapel with marble, and this marble also was sent from foreign lands. So she, in her mind, is remembering the success of someone who as a young person had gone from this village to London and made it big there, and she feels that Luke would also follow this path, or Luke can possibly also follow this path. So this is a mother's heart filled with a lot of hope, a lot of wishes for her son to succeed. These thoughts and many others of like sort passed quickly through the mind of Isabel, and her face brightened. The old man was glad and thus resumed, "While Isabel, the scheme these 2 days has been meat and drink to me. Far more than we have lost is left us yet." So these were the kind of thoughts that the couple were thinking as they conversed with each other. And then Michael resumed what he was saying to Isabel, and he said that 2 days I've been formulating this idea in my head, and this has been meat and drink to me. So I almost feel that this has been the only food for thought that I've had, and I've almost been celebrating with this idea, because the first solution that I came up with, I don't believe in it anymore. And I feel that yes, we have been presented with a huge challenge and we've had a grave loss in our lives, yet there is a lot that is left to us. There is a lot that we can still do, and hopefully this solution will work out. We have enough. I wish indeed that I were younger, but this hope is a good hope. So he says that it's not that all hope is lost. And in the beginning, when I heard of this distressful event, I really felt that all hope had left me. But no, now I feel we have enough. And in my young lad, I see this hope. And I do feel that it would be better that I were younger. I do feel it would have been nicer if I could still work hard and I would not have to send Luke away. But that's fine. This hope is a good hope, that I can send my child to London and that he can bring back the money which would save our ancestral lands, is a very good hope. Michael goes on to instruct his wife as regards the things that they need to be doing to make the preparations for Luke to travel to London. Make ready Luke's best garments, of the best buy for him more, and let us send him forth tomorrow or the next day or tonight. If he could go, the boy should go tonight. Here Michael ceased, and to the fields went forth with a light heart. The housewife for 5 days was restless morn and night, and all day long wrought on with her best fingers to prepare things needful for the journey of her son. So Michael instructs his wife that give him his best clothes, even if we have to buy new for him, let's not think twice about it, and let's just send him. And the excitement is so much that he feels that if Luke has to go, he should just immediately go. Maybe today, maybe just tonight he should leave. And then with a light heart that, okay, now I've come upon a solution. And hope makes you feel jaunty. It makes you feel that you can take on the world. So they have both come to believe in the solution and now feel very positive about how they would overcome this problem in their lives. So he says that I'm going to the fields now, and the housewife for the next 5 days, she was busy making things with her own hands so that she could prepare for the journey of her son. But Isabel was glad when Sunday came to stop her in her work. For when she lay by Michael's side, she, through the last 2 nights, heard him, how he was troubled in his sleep. And when they rose at morning, she could see that all his hopes were gone. That day at noon, she said to Luke, while they were two by themselves, was sitting at the door, "Thou must not go." Now, Isabel was finally very happy. It was Sunday. It was a day that she could take a break from all her work. And as she sat, she felt that there was something that she needed to discuss with Luke, with her son, because the last 2 nights she had felt that Michael had had very restless times, and she felt that he wasn't very happy, that he did not have as much hope in his heart, which he did when he first discussed this idea with her that Luke should go to London. So she feels that whenever I see Michael in the morning, I feel he's scared. I feel that he has his own doubts, and maybe this is not the best way to go forward. So she sits Luke down. They're sitting on the doorway of their cottage, and she tells Luke, "Thou must not go." A mother's heart, she also feels very bad that her only son would be away from her, and she's worried about her husband as well. She continues to say to Luke, "We have no other child but thee to lose, none to remember. Do not go away, for if thou leave thy father, he will die." The youth made answer with a jocund voice, and Isabel, when she had told her fears, recovered heart. That evening her best fare did she bring forth, and all together sat like happy people round a Christmas fire. So though she began to say to her son that you should not go, you're the only child that I have, I can't bear to part with you, and also I feel that if you were to go, your father might just not live very many years. But then the poet turns around and he says, bringing out a very special human quality, that sometimes when we are very afraid of something, once we have spoken of it, when we have discussed our fears, when we have put them into words and told them to someone close to us, someone who cares about us, we recover heart. We gather the courage to go ahead despite the fear that we have. So Isabel recovered heart, and she said, "Fine, I was scared, I spoke off to my son," but then she found her strength again, and then she prepared this nice feast, and they sat down for this lovely, lovely dinner like it were Christmas night, and they were celebrating just before Luke was supposed to leave for London. With daylight, Isabel resumed her work, and all the ensuing week the house appeared as cheerful as a grove in spring. At length, that expected letter from their kinsman came, with kind assurances that he would do his utmost for the welfare of the boy, to which requests were added that forthwith he might be sent to him. So for a week now, the preparations were in full swing. The house looked as cheerful as the spring season is, or a part of a garden or a grove in spring season is, and the letter from this relative was received. So Michael had written to this relative that, can I please send my son, would you please help him? And the relative replied, yes please, do send your son, and I'd be very happy to help him with his stay in London. So this is where Isabel feels that now she has to prepare for the trip and her son has to journey forth. So she was so happy with the letter that 10 times or more the letter was read over. Isabel went forth to show it to the neighbors round, nor was there a time on English land a prouder heart than Luke's. When Isabel had to her house returned, the old man said, he shall depart tomorrow. So Isabel read the letter so many times they couldn't believe that yes, the relative was welcoming Luke, and this was a good sign. They felt that the path that they had chosen, the universe was helping them to pursue this path. The relative had said yes, and Isabel took this letter, showed it to a few of her neighbors, and Luke was also very proud. Now he's a lad, very young person from a small village, and he also has aspirations about his life. So this excitement in his heart, wow, I'm going to be going to London, to this big city. So he was also very proud, and the poet says that he was perhaps at that time the proudest man in the whole country. And then Michael announces that Luke shall depart tomorrow. So tomorrow shall be the day when Luke will leave his parental land, his parental cottage, and will set forth for London. To this word the housewife answered, talking much of things which, if at such short notice he should go, would surely be forgotten. But at length she gave consent, and Michael was at ease. Now mothers, what they do is they feel, oh God, he has to leave tomorrow, there is not little time, we still have to do this, we have to do this, we might forget this, we might forget this. So they start making this verbal list of things that still need to be done and they still need to be accomplished before the journey can be undertaken. But then finally she said, okay, fine, tomorrow is not too soon, we have already prepared enough, and he could leave. And Michael was then at ease that finally my wife has agreed and Luke can set forth on his journey. Near the tumultuous brook of Greenhead Kill, in that deep valley, Michael had designed to build a sheepfold. And before he heard the tidings of his melancholy loss, for the same purpose he'd gathered up a heap of stones which by the streamlet's edge lay thrown together ready for the work. With these lines, the poet takes us back to the beginning of the poem. He had taken us to Greenhead Gill in the Grasmere Valley in the Lake District, and he had told us you're walking up this brook or this small river. Greenhead Gill is this small river, and then it's a tumultuous brook. He had earlier also mentioned this particular adjective, that it has a lot of energy, though the river is small. Also he uses the word streamlet, which also means a small river. And there, before Michael had heard of this loss that was going to overtake his life, this loss that was going to present itself as a challenge and will make him very sad, before this event happened, Michael had started to build a sheepfold there, a place where, an enclosure where sheep could be kept. And he thought of this enclosure, and for this purpose he had just put some stones around, that these would be used to build the sheepfold, and they were just thrown together just to start the work. With Luke that evening thitherward he walked, thither, there, so towards that particular position. With Luke that evening thitherward he walked, and soon as they had reached the place he stopped. And thus the old man spake to him, My son, tomorrow you will leave me. With full heart I look upon thee, for thou art the same that wert a promise to me ere thy birth, and all thy life has been my daily joy. So now Michael took his son to this particular spot where the sheepfold was to be built, and he stopped when he reached that place, and he told him that tomorrow you will leave me, and with a full heart. I do it with a heavy heart. I don't like to send you away. And you are the same that you were, and I was proud of you. You were a promise to me, you were a hope to me, even before you were born. Ere thy birth, before your birth, you had given me hope, and all this time you've been my daily joy. I've looked upon you and I've felt happy and hopeful. So he starts speaking to his son at this site where they want to build this sheepfold. I will relate to thee some little part of our two histories. It will do thee good. When thou art from me, even if I should touch on things thou canst not know of. After thou first came into the world, as oft befalls to newborn infants, thou didst sleep away 2 days, and blessings from thy father's tongue then fell upon thee. So Michael says that today I will tell you some of our shared history together. And of course, children don't remember what happened when they were born, what happened when they were growing up, but parents do remember. And Michael feels that when you'll be gone from me, this will do you good. And these are the things that you may not know of, you can't not know of. Maybe you are not aware of these things, but I want to share with you that how we have lived our life together. So he starts at the point where Michael was born. When you first came into this world, and this usually is the behavior of infants, that they sleep for a lot of time after they are born, and 2 days you kept sleeping, and then blessings from thy father's tongue fell upon thee, and then I started to talk to you, to bless you, and you were in my lap as a blessing, as a hopeful. I was hopeful about you, and I was very happy to have you as my child. Day by day passed on, and still I loved thee with increasing love. Never to living ear came sweeter sounds than when I heard thee by our own fireside, first uttering without words a natural tune, while thou, a feeding babe, didst in thy joy sing at thy mother's breast. So day by day passed on, and I loved thee with increasing love. I felt that there was no sound more sweet than the sounds you uttered. And these were not words, these were not sentences, they were just baby sounds. And I loved listening to these sounds as they came out of your mouth, and they were at the fireside. They would sit with the baby with the fire on in their cottage. And you were a feeding babe. You were still breastfeeding on your mother, and I would feel so happy, so proud of you. So Michael starts to discuss these things with the boy, because now as a father he feels that the boy is young. He's going to go away. It is love, it is responsibility, and it is a sense of belonging to these lands that will bring him back. And therefore he starts to tell him about how Luke had been loved in this house, how the father had always showered his blessings upon him, how the father had always duly cared for him. And Michael starts to speak to Luke about all these particular happenings in the past of the father and the son. With this, we come to the end of the 4th video on the poem Michael by William Wordsworth. If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Do stay tuned for the 5th video on the poem Michael, because that would be our concluding video of this work. Also, you can follow me on Instagram. My handle is pratyancha.in. So I'll see you in the last video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel up till now, now's the time to do it, so that you'll be the first to be notified when we conclude Michael. Thank you.